Okay, so in this video, we're going to run through and demonstrate a wall or back supported bicep curl variation. This particular video, we're going to use the EZ bar. Now, in terms of setup, I'm going to be using a barbell to replicate the wall. Obviously, you use whatever is available to you, and making sure that what you're using essentially is going to create that stability, okay? So don't use something that could potentially fall over when you lean into it, whatever it may be. You know, ideally, the best recommendation would be a wall, okay? Because a wall isn't going to go nowhere. So use that wall, or if you have a setup like myself, use the barbell. And all we're going to do is we're going to lean into that barbell, and that's going to create more stability through our spine, and it's also going to eradicate any kind of momentum or involvement of the spine and also the hip. So when we see a lot of people performing any kind of bicep variation, we typically see a lot of cheap reps, so to speak, momentum coming into play towards the end of that set. So when fatigue is kicking in, people are just trying to use any kind of momentum or any advantage that they have to get more repetitions out. Now, that's brilliant for our ego and in terms of putting more numbers down in a logbook, but in terms of progression, it's not going to be conducive, okay? So to make sure that we're standardizing the set from start to finish, which is always a integral aspect to every single exercise that we're performing, using something like a wall or this barbell is going to create that stability. It's going to give me that internal cue that I must make sure at all times I have contact with that barbell or with that wall. So I'm leaning into that wall, I'm leaning into that barbell, and from the start to the finish, I always have contact. As soon as I start coming away from it, then that is an indication that I'm reaching maximal failure of that given muscle, which would be the biceps in this scenario, and I'm potentially breaking down from a mechanical perspective, and I'm now starting to use momentum or some kind of cheap formula or method to create more repetitions, okay? So all we're gonna do with the EZ bar, we're gonna lean back into that wall slightly, and now from this position here, I no longer can go into spinal flexion. The only way I can is if I actually push myself off, okay? So as we're leaning back, we can now perform the set, and then we can execute. So from start to finish, we wanna make sure that we have contact with that wall and with that barbell. And then when we get towards the end of that set, like I said, when fatigue is starting to creep in, you want to slow the reps down. So break them down individually. So as opposed to doing this, getting to the bottom, go, come on, and then throwing it up. Come up to the top, get down to the bottom, pause to remove all of that inertia from the actual weight itself. And then from there, you're going to contract as hard as you can, and then get it up as high as you can, and then back down, pause, eliminate or get rid of that inertia, and then go again. And if you can only get to here, job done. You can then